Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting twice daily at 12 noon and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, once on Saturday at 5 p.m., and we have interviews dispersed throughout the week. Let's get into it, Nat.
Feels weird being on screen while you do that. First of all, thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe. Again, it really does help us out. Also, we attempt to read all your comments live after each segment. If you really, really want your comment read and you feel so inclined, you can always super chat. We pause the whole show for those. And we have memberships open.
There exactly. And I built a couple new sets. So we're just waiting on some equipment. So all the cameras will work on those other two sets. They look fantastic. At least the one does. The other one I kind of threw together at the last minute, and hopefully I'll make some improvements over the next couple of weeks while we wait for the equipment.
When the guy gets bored, he starts moving around furniture.
Well, I think the people want to change just more than just one set.
And also, we might announce in a bit, in the next few days, a few time schedule changes. We still gotta fully settle them and figure out what days are gonna be what. But so we can bring in more interviews and maybe even some edited videos during the week as well. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. But talking about interviews, tonight, Jason and Paula Levine's interview will be coming out. It's their first interview as a couple. It was filmed a while ago, but it's really good and just focusing on, and especially now when it's most important, strategies and what to do next. So,
well, and he's been a big help to us. So we really appreciate everything Jason's been doing for us behind the scenes, helping us get interviews if we don't have a contact for somebody and stuff like that.
Yeah. So thank you so much to him. Again, the trailer will come out right after this show, so you can find that on our X, and then the interview will come out around 8 p.m.
Yeah. Let's get into some comments, and then we'll get into today's stories. We have quite a bit of breaking news or topics I wanted to discuss before we get into the meat and potatoes of the news today.
Lyle Norman says, what a weekend, geez. And we heard there was a lot of flag waving, there were a few events, et cetera, et cetera.
It looks like everybody's getting rallied together, joining different organizations. Everything looks pretty good. I know the Fringe is having to get together some content creators on Wednesday, so hopefully that goes very well and everybody can get their messaging together.
And let's also not forget today is the debate between Keith Wilson and Jason Kenney. Speaking, should I change the time of the Levine interview?
No, because the Keith Wilson debate is not going to be aired or live streamed. Okay. Supposedly it's being videotaped, and Keith has indicated it may be released on YouTube at a later date, which we're hoping. Hopefully it gets released later tonight.
True. But we'll see. Okay, so the interview with Jason Levine and Paula will continue to be at 8 p.m. Look out for that. Lyle Norman also says, lol, but got some yard work and spring cleaning done. Well, you're one.
Fantastic.
We should do that too. I have a pile of clothes I have to fold.
Our neighbors just busting down walls in their place. We had to go up there and tell them, you have to stop smashing walls right now. We're doing something. But I'm worried about the structural integrity of the entire building now.
Something we have to deal with behind the scenes. Canadian Spider-Man says, good morning, Nat and Guy. Hello, good morning. Thank you for being here. William Robel, hello, says, a solemn Memorial Day to my fellow Americans. Please remember why we have today off work.
Exactly. And thanks for reminding us. Yeah, a solemn Memorial Day to everybody in the United States. I was born in Canada, raised half my life in Canada, but the other half I spent in the United States. So I have a great respect for Americans and just the American spirit of freedom. And I think a lot of Albertans do too. That's why we're fighting so hard for Alberta independence.
And thank you to everybody for their service as well. Present and past. Troglodyte says, hello, all gathered here to pursue freedom. Hello, thank you for being here. Troglodyte says, good day. And Canadian Spider-Man says, a fellow YouTuber whom I've been wrenching for over 5 years now said on his live stream that he did an interview with you both and loves what you do. I know him as Culture Casino. Great.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, I was just talking to him yesterday because he was asking, when's my interview coming out? And we do have a backup of interviews that I'm still slowly working through, but I want to make sure everything is properly done, the audio, the video, everything else. So his interview, if you do know who Culture Casino is, if not, I recommend you. This coming Sunday, 31st of May, his interview will be coming out. And he's a great American, talks about entertainment and everything else, but also about, interestingly enough, he knew quite a bit about Alberta independence, about Canada, about the disaster that's going on there. So we delve into that and also American politics, strategies, etc. So it's a very interesting interview. And I have the pleasure and the honor of being on a panel with him on WDW Pro every other Thursday.
Yeah, and I will say he has a gardening channel as well. And
Yes.
I know we have quite a few people that like the garden. It's called That Gardening Place. Absolutely fantastic.
That garden place. Go follow that one too. And again, I know Canadian Spider-Man. I think you probably came over from that, but a lot of people don't know my secret hidden identity where I go and talk about entertainment every other Thursday on WDW Pro. I've been doing that for about a year. I know some people were surprised that I was on there, but it's been a while, and I'm very thankful and grateful to That Park Place, WDW Pro, and everybody else. That's all I wanted to say. Okay, should we get into the actual show now?
Let's get into some breaking news. And I wanted to address a couple things right off of the top. And then there was another thing, actually, Steven Jensen gave us. It was sent us. It was an article from Bruce Party on his Substack. Absolutely fantastic. I only got through part of it, but I was like, oh, we need to talk about this immediately.
So thank you so much.
I threw it into breaking news today.
Thank you to Steven Jensen. Let's go into breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
And starting with from Chris Scott from the Whistle Stop Cafe saying, quote, removing Danielle Smith would lead to MLA resignations and an NDP majority government that would effectively end the independence movement in Alberta. The consequences of such a political shift are significant.
Yeah, I don't think we should trust Danielle Smith. That being said, this is kind of the counterpoint to keeping her in office. And I have a counterpoint to this saying, well, we need to think of a more long-term game. It looks like it's going to be a year and a half at the earliest for the second referendum to take place, possibly 2.5 years. So on that timeline, we are able to enact change in a much different way. So let's hear what he has to say. I actually like what he has to say. And then I'll talk about how do we deal with this issue in the long-term strategies.
You remove Danielle Smith, you're going to lose MLAs. They're going to resign. They're going to go on their merry little way. They're going to say, if this can happen right now, I'm out. I don't want to be a part of this. And that's exactly the thing that people aren't saying. And if you want that, I don't stand with you, because that's how it's going to go down. It is going to go down exactly like that. Danielle Smith gets removed, which I don't think there's a huge opportunity that that's going to happen. MLAs resign. The NDP get majority government. They're now the government in Alberta. And what happens to the independence movement? It's gone.
Yeah.
You remove Danielle Smith.
And this is a really good point. And this is why we need a long-term strategies to place MLAs in the positions that we need that support independence. So if you can bring up the next part or read the next part that I did grab. And I wanted to know when we could elect new MLAs that would be in favor of Alberta independence, because we have a definite date in mind here.
So it says October 18, 2027, Alberta has a fixed date election law. The Election Act sets provincial general elections for all 87 MLAs on the third Monday in October in the fourth calendar year after the previous one. The last election was on May 29th, 2023. So the next schedule is scheduled for October 18th, 2027.
So October 18th, 2027, that's when we have a chance to re-elect all 87 MLAs, but there needs to be a ground game leading up to that. So we have to identify people we want to put in their place who outwardly support Alberta independence. And what is our long-term strategy if we do take over the UCP and things like this? I know a lot of people want to oust Danielle Smith. I've been on both sides of it. When she first came out with the question, I was actually said give her some room. When she said it's going to take more than 2.5 years, I was like, maybe we need to get rid of her. That being said, if we do choose to get rid of her, we need to have a long-term strategy, not just for Danielle Smith, but for other MLAs that don't support Alberta independence, I believe. So I just wanted to kind of bring up the date the earliest date we could possibly re-elect new MLAs, and that is October 18th, 2027. The funny thing about that date, that is kind of earmarked as the early likely date we could have the second referendum for independence. October 2028, the year after that, is another date that was earmarked possibly for independence when the court case would be cleared up. Mm-hmm. All that being said, that kind of leads into the next article we had with Bruce Party.
Yes, and I just noticed I did not read some of the comments because they hadn't shown up on my little comment reading thing on my computer, but I'll read them after we read the Bruce Party Substack. From First Principles with Bruce Party.
And one moment, I read the beginning of this, and it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you to Steven Jensen for sending this to me. It's fairly long. I don't know if we're going to get through the whole thing, but it's definitely going to bring up the discussion we need to have.
Says no independence vote because courts. The Alberta government gaslights its way to an absurd 10th referendum question. And again, if you don't follow Bruce Party on Substack, go follow him, go subscribe. We do as well. It says two recent Alberta court decisions do not prohibit an independence referendum, but Danielle Smith is pretending that they do. She is hiding behind them. She and her people have repeatedly said that the May 13th decision from Justice Leonard of the Alberta Court of King's Bench must be appealed and resolved before the independence question can be posed.
And that's the big thing here. And that's why she's saying she can't pose it on October 19th. Now, if that's the case, she's saying she can't pose a binding question because it will be blocked within 2 weeks. The same principle still stands in March or April of next year. If we propose it then, the government is going to block it at that point. According to Danielle Smith, now, is that the case or is that not the case? According to Bruce Party, that's not the case, but let's keep reading here.
Yes, it continues. That is not correct. It is one of the main rationales Smith has given for the new 10th question to be added to the October 19 referendum. Asking should Alberta remain a province of Canada or should the government of Alberta commence a legal process required under the Canadian Constitution to hold a binding provincial referendum on whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada. She says she must do it this way because the courts have ruled she can't ask the independence question. Smith has said that she disagrees with the Leonard decision, but the rule of law, quote unquote, requires her government obeys it while appealing it. She protests too much. The Leonard decision, as well as the Feasby decision released in December, are both about the petition process under the Citizen Initiative Act. That act sets out a way for citizens to trigger a referendum, but the government of Alberta can decide to hold a referendum on its own under the Referendum Act. Both decisions acknowledge that it can. The government does not need to use the Citizen Initiative Act at all. In fact, that's what Smith has already done. She also scheduled a referendum for October 19 and selected 10 questions for the ballot. She did not rely on the Citizen Initiative Act to do that.
Now, I don't know if this is the case or not. The thing is, what Danielle Smith and some other legal minds are saying is if she posed the question on October 19th as the binding question, it would automatically be blocked because of the other court case. That fact is going to remain if we pose the question early next year. But if we want to pose the question early next year, we need to start consultations with the First Nations so they can't use the same objective, or at least it outflanks that objective, I would hope. Mm-hmm. So we definitely need to start consultations with First Nations. I know Mitch Sylvester tried to do that and nobody showed up. He put an invitation out to 48 of them. What are we supposed to do if we're supposed to consult, but nobody wants to show up for the consultation?
Mm-hmm. Continues, these two court decisions did not deal with a referendum question chosen by the government under the Referendum Act. Danielle Smith could decide to hold an independence referendum if she wanted to. That would not violate these court decisions. She's pretending that it would. Those decisions don't apply to a government referendum. She is making up an excuse not to pose the independence question. And again, this is being written by Bruce Party, law professor and Alberta independence supporter.
Danielle Smith and Bruce Party do talk to each other. And he is a fantastic legal mind. If Danielle Smith does go on the fringe and he's going to ask some questions, I highly recommend he goes to Bruce Party's Substack, kind of reads this and digs into her with these questions. Could she actually pose a binding question on October 19th? Why not? She stated because they're going to block it within 2 weeks. Okay, if you're going to block it within 2 weeks, why is that not going to happen early in 2027 if you do the exact same thing? If you're lying to us and you could have posed a binding question on October 19th, I'm much more in the camp of we need to plan to take over the UCP and start to oust Danielle Smith. If that's not the case, I'm more than willing to kind of let her stay and wait out until October of 2027.
Because funnily enough, we did start posing this same question ourselves after while we were watching her what was it? The press conference she made just for press and media availability regarding the referendum. So it's interesting that he's also posing.
The day after she posed the question, she had a question and answer period. Mm-hmm. A lot of people didn't watch it. We posted what I thought was the big highlight on our X account, mm-hmm. where she said it was going to be over 2.5 years to actually get the second referendum, and her thinking behind that, which was absolutely ridiculous to me. But we need to clear this up. Yeah. Were you actually able to call a binding question on October 19th? And if that's the case, there needs to be consequences.
Now, if Smith announced an independence referendum under the Referendum Act, there's no guarantee that Aboriginal leaders wouldn't challenge that in court too. But that would be a new case. It would be under a different statute. That would be a new judge. The aspect of the Leonard decision that people seem most concerned about is its conclusion that the chief electoral officer had a duty to consult Aboriginal groups before the petition could proceed, and therefore before a referendum could be held. That's an error by the judge. It's an expensive and incorrect application of the duty to consult. It conflicts with Supreme Court of Canada jurisprudence. A new judge in a new case might or might not make the same mistake.
And another good way to kind of counteract this so we don't run into the same mistake if there is a second challenge would be to start consulting First Nations now. A lot of people said it would take up to a year. I don't see why it would take more than a few months. We need to start that process now, either which way it goes, so we don't have the same objection and we have possibly another ideological judge.
True, but apparently what the judge was saying is that you need to consult the chief electoral officer is the one that has a duty to consult, not the group itself. But I don't know if it would be taken into account.
Okay, and we can kind of leave that there. I do recommend...
I do want to read the nice bit. It says, but let's say that he does. Let's say that a new judge in a new case under the Referendum Act says that the government of Alberta cannot hold an independence referendum without consulting. In that case, the government should consult. It's not a big deal. Go ask Aboriginal Albertans what they think about holding a referendum. The duty to consult is not an Aboriginal veto. And in any event, polling has suggested that support for independence among the Aboriginal population is strong. Don't consult the leaders, but the people. Get on with it. It doesn't have to take that long. Smith is using these court decisions as an excuse not to do what she does not really want to do anyway. Her 10th question is a hot mess, but not by accident.
And this kind of brings up the conversation of what's happening right now. Certain groups want to focus all on October 19th. Other people are asking these questions right here that Bruce Party put out extremely clearly for us. And if this is the case, and she isn't posing a binding question on October 19th, but she had the power to do it, what makes us believe she's going to do it at any point in the future? And these are questions we need to start asking ourselves. We definitely need to start working towards October 19th and making sure that vote does pass. But it's a much easier question now because we're not asking for complete independence because it's non-binding. What we're actually asking for is if people want to give Albertans more leverage in negotiation talks with Ottawa.
And again, this was from First Principles with Bruce Party on Substack. Please go read it, follow him, subscribe, etc.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to give credit where credit was due because we did read quite a bit of that. Okay. Now let's go into your comments. Again, I'll read the ones that I couldn't see for some reason, and then we'll go into the other ones.
Yeah. And again, maybe I just make a little bit of appeal if Danielle Smith does go on the unacceptable fringe. The reason there's starting to be a couple camps right now is because of these questions right here. So getting Danielle Smith to really answer them directly, and if she kind of does a roundabout answer, re-asking the questions and know exactly what questions need to be asked there to kind of unite both camps again and clear up any kind of misconceptions that there are about how she's supposed to pose a binding question either on October 19th or later next year.
Lal Norman had said, again, I'm reading the ones that I couldn't read, says, I guess there are meetings coming up to get us ready for campaigning.
Absolutely.
Hopefully
Fantastic.
So, and many, hopefully. Justin GP, hello, says, hi, I'll call Western Standard during the show. Thank you.
And there's no rush on it.
No, there's no rush.
Because it took us quite a while to contact them. It took them a while to contact us back as well. But yeah, thank you again for everything. We really do appreciate it.
Yes. And William Rebel had said, howdy, Nat, and some random guy. Very much random guy. Okay.
That's actually my name. So
that is his
a lot of people don't know.
Not random guy, just guy. Negan Dome says, honestly, this delay in referendum might be a blessing in disguise, considering we don't yet have the numbers to win, and also given the reveal last night on Chris Scott's live regarding APP drama.
Yeah, we actually have a clip from Chris Scott saying this is a blessing in disguise as well. And I tend to agree with that. If we really look at the polling numbers, we had about 35% for independence. Right now, we're sitting between 60 and 80% for a better deal with Ottawa because it is a non-binding question. So getting people to tick yes for independence because it's non-binding binding is going to make it much easier for them to tick yes the second time. And it gives us plenty of time to interact with people around Alberta online and in other ways.
And outside of Alberta, too.
Yeah.
Nigandome says, our priority right now needs to be to get that initial vote on the 19th, not changing the question or starting a new political party. I do agree with that second bit. And specifically, but what I will also say, let's not forget about the question issue and the Danielle Smith issue. And is she, what Bruce Party just said, is she allowed to actually pose a different question all by herself? All of that, let's just not forget about it, is my point.
And I disagree a little bit for sure. I think we need to have multiple directions here. We
Yes,
need to start
that's what I'm
working.
saying.
We need to start working on the UCP, and we need these questions answered. So somebody needs to interview Danielle Smith on what it takes to actually ask a binding question. Why didn't she do it on October 19th? Because if we don't clear this up, it's only going to lead to the fact that she's never going to call it in the future. We need to know the answers to these questions so we can kind of unify and go forward. We're also already going forward for October 19th. Nothing's going to stop that. Nobody's saying stop campaigning for October 19th. What we're saying is we got to get clarification when the second referendum can actually take place and why it didn't take place on October 19th in the first place.
And Michael Drader says, according to Mitch, First Nations were invited to consult and they no-showed multiple times, apparently. Honestly, I wouldn't trust the First Nation band leaders to not play both sides and potentially double dip.
All 48 members or representatives from all 48 tribes were invited by Mitch. Not one showed up. He literally stayed there all day.
But I do agree there with Bruce Party saying let's consult the members themselves as well, because again, there is that big show of support from the members. And even with the members questioning, we probably also want independence from our own chiefs.
Yeah, but what you have to realize about this is the duty to consult is not actually outlined. So nobody knows what that means. So if we consult the members, what they're going to say is you had to consult the chiefs.
Or vice versa, even.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? Canadian Spider-Man says, well, I had no idea that you're on WW Pro panel each week. It's every other week. So one Thursday, yes, one Thursday, no. Says, fantastic. Those guards are great. I'll be watching you on that panel. I agree. Culture Casino knows a surprising amount about Alberta. Yes, he does. And again, Culture Casino's interview will come out on Sunday, 31st.
Absolutely. And he's moving to Tennessee soon. So exciting time for him.
True. Charlotte says, end of the day, retribution won't further the independence movement.
Well, it's not about retribution at all. And nobody's saying that like, we have to oust Danielle Smith, and that's the direction we're going. What we're saying is we need clarification why the binding question wasn't asked on October 19th, because what Keith and other people are suggesting is February and March, she's actually going to pose the binding question. But if she didn't pose it now, the same hurdles are going to lie in her way. So if she poses it then, it's going to be blocked by the court anyway. We want to know what the legal mechanisms are and why didn't you actually pose that question, and when are you going to actually pose it in the future? People right now are, when I talk to a lot of legal experts, it's October 17th, 2027 or October 2028. Those are the two most likely dates. Anytime before that, it's actually going to be challenged. So we need her to actually clear this up.
Sanjali, hello, says not true. She can be replaced on November at the AGM.
Yeah, but if she is replaced in November, and I could care less either way, which way people want to go. I understand there is a lot of angry people, but we have to wait to after the October 19th vote anyway. So we really should start hunkering down and focusing in on October 19th and getting people to vote yes on independence. But once we do oust her, a lot of MLAs are going to leave. Berta Proud Dad was right about that. And that could lead the way to the NDP rising up.
If there's not enough people to fill that in the meantime. And then bringing those people up to fill those spots in the meantime.
No, if these people step down, then that would lead way to the NDP. It's not like there's another election and we get to choose them.
But would in the next election be?
October 2027.
Okay. Oh, yeah, because the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of why I brought up that timeline.
Yes. Sanjali says First Nations and Métis were canvassers. The chiefs didn't show up. And yet they don't want that fact ever being uttered or spoken about in mainstream media or even in independent media. Canadian Spider-Man says we should not be consulting with the greedy chiefs who do not represent their peoples. The vote is the consultation, and every native person gets an equal vote to everyone else. True equality.
Yeah, but we all know this, and we all know this this ruling was handed down by an ideological judge. That's obvious. And we know if we put another question forward, it's very likely another ideological judge is going to step up and just agree with the federal government and block it again. This is why I'm saying February and March isn't likely, because even when I was watching The Fringe and he was going throughout the timeline through AI and Grok, one of the big things was if there was no legal challenges. That's the same reason why she didn't pose a binding question the first time. If she poses it in the future, you have to assume there's going to be a legal challenge.
Or at least that's what she says.
Yeah, but once the court case is cleared up, that gives a clear path forward for a binding referendum. That being said, if she can pose it before, let's say in February or March, I say let her pose it and have them block it. Because then at least it takes the mask off of the federal government, saying it's going to really rally a lot of support towards independence if the government blocks it again.
Canadian Spider-Man says if natives get special rights to veto things, it will only lead to more racism because of the inequality. And again, I've said it plenty of times. I don't think the Chiefs are doing any favors to their own people.
Well, we just kind of read the statement from Bruce Party, and Bruce Party's been absolutely fantastic. And if a lot of people remember, he said no specialty groups and classes. And this is what we're kind of seeing when you get specialty groups and classes. You're going to have ideological rulings like this. You're going to have hate speech, compelled speech, all kind of other laws put into effect on the back of a specialty group or class, whether it's First Nations, LGBTQ, or any other specialty group.
And hold on, Chocolatite says, when a select small group of people can control the majority, they are not oppressed, they are your masters. or being used by the federal government themselves.
Yeah.
By using them as the shield to do whatever they want and then not be criticized. But now I think that shield is starting to come down or starting to be beaten down because people are realizing what the true intentions are of the federal government by doing things like this.
Absolutely.
Sanjali says the Chiefs don't represent us, and exactly, and especially if they are in cahoots probably or being helping out the federal government for some sort of remuneration as well. Slavica, I'm going to say Slavica. Sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Says good guy. You're right. The chief was interviewed and offered to speak to Smith to negotiate instead of appealing the court decision. It's so obvious that Smith is opposed to independence.
Yeah, and this is why we have to have immediate strategies, and our immediate strategies have been helped out because it's a non-binding question, and a lot of people just want a better deal for Alberta, so they're going to vote yes. It's a much easier hurdle than it was before. A lot of polling says we have between 60 and 80% support. That being said, we need a more long-term strategy because it looks like it's going to take 1.5 to 2.5 years before we get that second referendum. And if that's the case, that's why I outlined October 18th, 2027 as a time we can replace any MLAs that aren't in support of Alberta independence. And I think that's what Mitch is kind of working on. And that needs to be worked on simultaneously as we work on the October 19th, 2026 referendum.
Sanjali says the commercials are very interrupting, always at the worst times. And sorry about that. We don't get to pick and choose when they come up. We do need a few just so we get some sort of remuneration while the stream is up. I think I have them on low because you can select if you want a high amount of commercials or low. I have them on low. So again, there's also sometimes we get government commercials.
Let's go into Alberta Stay Free if we can. Well, you were on questions for quite a while there, Nat. Don't get angry.
Well, Lal Norman says, I think Fringe is going to interview Danielle, and I hope so. Again, he said yes and no multiple times throughout the past few days, so I hope he does.
Well, I think he will. His most recent statement said he was, and she said she would be willing to be on there. I highly recommend that he reads that Bruce Party statement because this is what's causing the anger with Danielle Smith. What are the legal hurdles? Why didn't you call a binding referendum on October 19th? In her statement, what I heard was she said it would be blocked by the courts within 2 weeks. If that's the case, if we call it in February or March next year, that's still going to be the case. The same mechanisms are going to be in place and we won't get a referendum then either. So we need to ask her these questions and just get some clarification here. I'm not asking for her ousting, or I'm not saying we shouldn't oust her. What I'm saying is we need clarification, and the sooner we get it, the better.
But now let's go into Alberta Stay Free, since you won't let me read more comments.
Free home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And starting with from Keith Wilson saying, there is nothing extreme about asking whether Alberta would be better governed by Albertans. It's one of the most reasonable questions in Canadian politics today.
Absolutely.
Well, more reasonable than not knowing what a woman is.
And we also need to talk about the systems of governance. What do we want in independent Alberta? What is a better option? What's wrong with the governance that's happening right now? These are the questions where they're adjacent issues. We don't have to always jump right to Alberta independence, because this vote coming up is actually to get a better deal for Alberta, and people are very likely to vote for that. And that's kind of what we want to focus on. The adjacent issues. What's the mismanagement of the government now? How can we manage it better? How could we reset the entire system? And what is a better vision? And Keith is currently working on that by putting together a council. And I absolutely love what he's doing right now.
And to be able to frame it that way as well, for those that might be on the fence, if it is framed, at least for the October 19th one that's coming up, if we can frame it as well, it's a way to reset with the Canadian government and to maybe get a better deal, then you might actually get more votes.
Well, and this is the time we're going to plant the maximum number of seeds, because it's such an easy question we're posing. We just want a better deal with the federal government. When we were posing the hard-nosed question, and that's the question I actually agree with, I want independence. Anybody that watches the show knows that I want that as well. But in order to get the general public to the point where they actually will vote in a binding referendum for independence, this non-binding referendum could help us a lot. And it's the opportunity to plant seeds, not about independence, but the mismanagement of Canada and the mismanagement of Alberta itself.
But also, the Alberta Pin over the weekend says, quote, "It's always the same two people." Forever Canadian says, quote, "Hours before Forever Canadian opening and the launch of the Unity bus tour, lawn signs are flying."
I thought this was a meme when I first saw it. I could not believe it. I did recognize this girl because she's always the person that's in the propaganda videos for Forever Canada. So I said, okay, well, actually, they made this. It's absolutely crazy. Nobody would put their face in it, because I believe it's probably all workers that are taking these signs.
Okay, this is huge. It's the first Forever Canadian lawn sign, and it's going to Jennifer. She's a little shy. She doesn't want to be on camera, but I wanted to capture this moment. Okay, hours before opening, number 2, going to Michelle from Leduc, who is also a little shy, but definitely supports Unity.
They all work there. That looks ridiculous. You literally hide your face.
Yeah, that doesn't give you a very good look. If the people that are supposed to be supporting you, because they probably just work for you and you use them as props, don't want to show their faces.
You would be better off having the propaganda girl that does put her face on camera, put it in a yard, even if it's not her yard, and Luke Hasek. There's your two people, so you get 2 little clips, rather than people literally hiding their face. That seemed crazy to me.
Well, I mean, maybe that's how
But this is a good sign for our side.
I mean, they might not be realizing it, but they're saying more truth there than I think they actually do realize. But CBC Watcher also says, quote, Keith Wilson's full interview with Rosemary Barton, saying, quote, "In his speech, he talked about, well, the pipeline will only go ahead if there's a significant benefits to British Columbia. That's a new condition, and he's given vetoes."
Yeah, and this was a fantastic clip. I recommend going to watch the whole thing. We'll show a large portion of it, but not all. Keith Wilson seemed to have a pretty good rapport. It's the opposite strategy of Jeff Rath. I think Jeff Rath runs circles around the CBC when he's on there, but this actually led to them inviting him back on as well, which is fantastic. And it was just cool, calm, and collective. And we do need to get this messaging out to national Canada. Keith is a great spokesman here.
Some separatists upset with this move by the Premier have threatened to oust Premier Smith over her referendum question. Others have indicated the Premier's path forward makes a lot of sense. Keith Wilson is an Alberta constitutional lawyer and advocate for Alberta separation, and I spoke to him earlier. Keith Wilson, thanks so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
What do you think of this decision by the Premier to ask Albertans, do you want to stay in Canada or do you want to begin a process to hold a referendum? Is this a setback for someone like yourself?
Well, I don't think so. And the reason is I don't think she had a choice with the court ruling that we've had. She really had little option. And what I think is encouraging for me about it is that it allows those of us like myself who are strong supporters of Alberta independence to keep the moving forward and keep the discussion alive about why we think Albertans would be better off as our own country.
I mean, the other option that she had would have been just to walk away from it entirely. So why do you think that she felt she had to put something on the table that she really now owns, because it is going to be a government, a government question put to citizens?
Well, I've known the Premier for a long time, And she's a great believer in democracy and in grassroots democracy and direct democracy. And the fact of the matter is that our former premier or deputy premier, Thomas Lukasik, initiated the Forever Canada campaign and got 400,000 signatures. And those documents don't talk about a vote other than a referendum on staying in Canada. And then the Mitch Sylvester Leave campaign, Stay Free Alberta, got 300,000. So, and the polling is showing that a majority or potentially a majority of UCP members or political party support independence. So I think she committed that if the numbers were there, the people would get to decide.
So as you alluded to there, this gives you some time to try and build support.
Yes.
And it's very interesting the tactics they're taking. I think they're realizing that the old tactics, they can disperse out here or there where they just go hard at independence, but they're going to need to open up some dialogue. Otherwise, we're going to change hearts and minds by planting seeds, because their original strategy was if you have family members or co-workers that support independence, we need to cut them off and fracture them, much how it was during the Jibby Jab era. Now it seems like they're realizing our strategy was the winning strategy, so they're starting to adopt it.
It's happening at a time when the premier is now pretty clear about where she stands. She wants, obviously, Alberta to remain. And you have a federal government who's going to try and demonstrate why Alberta should remain. So how are you planning to try and build support in that context?
Well, where I do strongly disagree with the premier is I don't think we've had the progress that she describes. I respectfully think she's overstating things. We haven't had a repeal of what's known in Alberta as the 9 bad laws. We still have the tanker ban. The oil industry here, as you know from your coverage, is very concerned about the feasibility of the combined cost of the industrial carbon tax, the Pathways Project, the methane emissions. And Albertans who are seeking independence, concerns are not purely economic.
Sure.
There's serious concerns about other policies that have come out of Ottawa that we don't feel many of us align with our values.
There has been progress,
Okay,
though.
and we can leave it there. And I do think as the mainstream media and the Federalist side starts to get into these actual conversations about independence, they're going to want to frame it around economics, especially since I think Mark Carney is trying to federalize natural resources. He's eventually going to approve these pipelines, and he's going to approve mining projects in British Columbia as well. And for the non-politically engaged, they're not going to realize what it means that Mark Carney is approving these projects, but federalizing them at the same time. All they're going to see is that these projects are approved. This is a good thing.
Now let's go into your comments.
Yeah.
Justin GB
Your
says,
favorite part of the show.
Yes, it is. Justin GB says, yep, Nat is awesome. Thank you. That she follows the Kardashians as closely as she follows Alberta independence. Lol, joking. Not anymore. I did at some point when I was younger, but now, like when I was focusing on pop culture and everything that was going on was more about the identity politics and the DEI inserted into all the movies. And I made quite a few videos both in English and in Spanish back in the day.
Yeah.
Before I started focusing more on Alberta independence.
We kind of started with a lot of freedom causes, the March Across Canada, the Truckers Convoy. That's how we started the channel. And eventually we moved into the culture war and the war on wokeism. And we continued that fight here in Mexico as well. We have a Spanish station with like 11,000 subscribers that a lot of that was based around. Mm-hmm. But with Alberta independence, this is a real paradigm shift between the government and the citizens where we can actually make a change. So I think it's crucially important right now.
Before we used to focus more on, I was more the culture war, identity politics, etc., and you were more the geopolitics, hard geopolitics, war, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But now we've kind of just focused on this a lot more. Maybe eventually we'll go back to also covering those topics a bit more. And in Spanish, I will go back as well. Justin GP says, and the good thing is we can utilize this opportunity for them to understand it's a great option to send Ottawa a message by voting. Yes, exactly. And we can also start focusing on that too.
Well, yeah, and with an extended timeline as well. I'm just so interested in what's going to happen tonight with this Jason Kenney and Keith Wilson debate. I really hope the video actually comes out this time.
Yes, and hold on. Justin GP says to Alberta Nan, for some reason, Alberta Nan's messages are not showing up for me. But Alberta says, yep, saw that tonight. I'm hoping Guy shows that today or tonight, but now I'm trying to figure out what you mean. Oh, John Bolton, Alberta Nan for Independence says, John Bolton has a video on it released earlier today.
Okay, let's keep going here, Nat. You look confused.
Well, again, I'm just trying to figure out why someone's messages who's a member are not showing up.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And remember, we just remind the audience, certain messages don't show up if they have emojis or if they have links because we were getting a lot of spam within the comments. So we had to block those two things.
Yes, but these ones didn't. So that's why I'm a bit concerned. Justin GP says the PM said that they must review the question, which is true, but they cannot put the question out. They're only able to review it to ensure it aligns with the Clarity Act, from my understanding. They cannot kick the question out, only review it to ensure it aligns with the Clarity Act as stated in the Clarity Act. They can say it doesn't align, but we just have to be ensure it aligns. Ensure it aligns first.
Yeah, and I'm not too concerned about the actual question. It looks like it's going forward as a non-binding question. There is concerns of why it wasn't a binding question, and why do we think in February or March it is going to be a binding question, because those legal challenges are going to come up in February or March if we are successful in the first referendum. That being said, yeah, we do need to start focusing in on October 19th, and we also need to focus in on October 2027 and getting MLAs in there that do support Alberta independence.
And hold up, Justin DB says, I haven't watched John's video on it. I must watch. Sean, hello, Sean, says they really want to hang on to Alberta because it's the one province who hasn't elected degrowth, collectivism, and the managerial wisdom and leadership of the Laurentian managerial elite. Then continues, I think a few provinces like British Columbia have elected the rule of managed decline, share your house with an immigrant who may unalive you. Canadian culture has been weaponized against itself.
Yeah, well, he federalizes natural resources. He actually has to repress them at the same time, because if natural resources are bringing massive amounts of wealth into Canada, it becomes very hard to federalize at this point. That's why I think a lot of these regulations, restrictions, and carbon taxes are actually about repressing the entire natural resource sector so he can federalize it.
And Alberta Now for Independence says, hold on, because now I have to find it. I can't read. I'm old. Says, asking us, curious if Alberta independence is being discussed in Mexico City and what they think there. Well, I made a few videos trying to clarify, because specifically, and funnily enough, I talked about this during our interview with Jason and Paula tonight. Funnily enough, even conservative outlets here, at least at the time when I was still reporting on it in Spanish, were saying still the 51st state narrative. And it was independent conservative outlets, so there was just not enough information known. I think it's died down a bit. It came up when the signatures were finally announced that they had reached the threshold of collection for separation or for independence. But since then, it's kind of died down because we have other stuff here. But when I do reinitiate my channel in Spanish, I will start talking about it again.
The same narrative is very strong in the States. Yeah. When we first started talking to people in the US, I'd say it was everybody was bringing up the 51st state. Now I think we've got a good enough message out to the US where it's about 50-50 when we talk to somebody right now. But in Mexico and the international community, we haven't penetrated that bubble yet. It's still primarily 51st state talking points. We're doing our best to counteract that by saying we want to be our own independent nation inside of Alberta, because we voted conservative for the last 93 years. That's a good base to go forward to build a long-term game plan. In the United States, every 4 or 8 years, you have one government trying to undo what the other government has already done. We don't want a new master in the United States, even if it is slightly better. We want to be our own independent nation.
True. And Sanjali says, yep, wait for October 19th, and then bye, Danielle, and hello, Todd Lowen. And A2.0 hello says, let's hit the thumbs up.
Yeah, if you haven't hit the thumbs up, and also subscribe. We're only, I think, 15 or 16 subscribers away from 3,000 right now.
Thank you so much to everybody as well for that. And James Hunt says, if the courts can stop a question to separate, it should be up to them to draft a question to separate that they cannot stop. True.
Okay, let's go into Alberta politics if we can.
Yes.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And starting with from Ryan Gertison saying, quote, each and every time Alberta separatism is brought up in the media, they go after Danielle Smith for stoking the separatist movement. They rarely, if ever, bring up the 11 years of being ignored and basically left out of Canadian conversation by the Liberal government as the true cause of Alberta separatism.
Yeah, and eventually they're going to get their game together. They're going to stop attacking Danielle Smith because she is making the best talking points for Federalists. Jason Kenney has done a pathetic job. A lot of these other Federalists have as well. Danielle Smith is smart enough to know how to make these talking points from an insider's perspective. Even Pierre Poilievre isn't going to be able to do the kind of job that she is. Now, the Alberta Independence side still has much better talking points, but they need to do the most with the best they have, and the best they have at this point is Danielle Smith. So eventually they'll stop attacking her, but to this point they still are.
No sense.
Scott, the Premier insists that she will campaign on the stay side. Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the federal Conservatives, also pretty emphatically said this week that he and his federal Conservative MPs will do the same. What do you envision, the voices on that side are going to have to be like? Who are they going to have to be, and what kind of things are they going to have to do over the summer?
Well, I thought, to his credit, Pierre Poilievre was emphatic and he was declarative. And he talked about it from the perspective of if he's someone who aspires to be prime minister, then his first obligation is to ensure that he is a champion of keeping Alberta within Canada. I must say, Premier Smith has offered very flimsy assurances.
And this is the problem. They think you have to take this extremely hard stance, no compromise. They're not going to be able to plant the seeds to bring people over to the side of federalism. Danielle Smith walks that very tightrope where she says, I'm a federalist, but I understand the concerns of Albertans, and she's trying to address them and fix them. This has the ability to plant seeds. And as far as I can see on the federalist side, she's the only one that actually has the ability to plant any kind of seed to change any kind of mind. And the rest of them need to kind of take pointers from her if they want to be more successful than they are right now. That being said, I'm happy they're kind of floundering in the wind at this point and pushing Danielle Smith to the side.
Well, and that tightrope from Danielle Smith is getting tighter and tighter and narrower as the days go.
Is by way of comparison. And, this notion that, she says, well, I'm going to campaign for Alberta to stay here. But she talks of it so casually at her Friday press conference. Well, I'll do some town halls like I do town halls. I'll talk about all 9 questions. No doubt this question will come up. This is a engineered question to create division, to ignite dangerous elements. I mean, as you said yourself, it is a question.
I'm sorry, but it's a question on a question. It's engineered for nothingness. Everybody knows that. This is why the independent side is so upset. So the fact that he's taking such a hard stance here and trying to gaslight the general public is absolutely ridiculous. The Federalists are going to want people to believe this is an actual question on independence and not getting a better deal with Ottawa. The fact is, this is the first of 2 referendums, and we need to make sure we don't allow their framing to kind of take over the space.
It's a cake and eat it too question. It invites, obviously, separatists to vote to leave, but it also invites all others to say, well, you know what, maybe this is a strategic vote. Perhaps I can wedge a little bit more out of Ottawa and the other provinces, the rest of Canada, if we perpetuate this and move toward. There's no downside, there's no consequence, there's no immediate separation. So let's just keep this thing going and see if it offers us leverage. The challenge, of course, is that perpetuates uncertainty. The Premier, in the same breath that she talks about the need to get this issue resolved, is herself the sponsor of it. She is offering the platform for the separatists, for the spread of, at least for 5 months, misinformation. She is creating a climate where these divisions and this dialogue will unfold. And she acts as though she's just a cork in a raging river of democracy. She's steering the ship, and she's steering it toward the shoals of separatism.
If this was actual democracy, we would have an actual vote on independence. That being said, I'm willing to do the best with what we can with the question that we do have. And we do need to start convincing people on October 19th to vote yes for independence, because it will lead to a better deal with Ottawa. We've seen Quebec get deal after deal after deal. The same can be had for Alberta. A matter of fact, we're going to have the first referendum question. People are going to hopefully vote to get a better deal with Ottawa, and they're going to have almost another year to the secondary referendum. We'll see if the federal government actually acts on that deal, because if they don't, then the people are going to have a chance to really voice their opinion on actual independence.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of, Danielle Smith from CP24, of course, are going to highlight this, says, quote, yes, I do. Alberta Premier Smith promises not to hold later separation referendum if Remain side wins October vote.
Exactly. And this is why she's obviously a Federalist. She's a stated Federalist. The fact that their Federalist side is trying to act like she's a separatist or for independence is absolutely ridiculous. They're having multiple shots at the question now. If they win on the first one, there is no second question, she's saying. If we win on the first one, then we get to keep going. It's like we're playing a video game and we got to win all the levels just to get to the end. They just have to win one level and it's game over.
True, because they're playing on easy mode, as they always do, and as they always ensure that they have to do.
Yeah.
That was a good analogy, actually.
Once in a while,
the video game thing.
I got half a brain,
Half of video games.
Oh, thank you.
But moving on, Freedom Honey posted this from Corey Morgan about Alberta's referendum campaign.
Well, and I'm glad to see he worked on a project like this, and hopefully this will give clarification for a lot of people to go forward. How can they actually take action?
Hey there, coming from a hotel room in Saskatoon. I'll give an update on a few things in the independence front because things are moving fast these days. I'm out here on what's called Summit. This one's Summit Saskatoon. This afternoon, if you're watching this on the Saturday, I'm going to be in Regina speaking to the Saskatchewan Prosperity Project on this tour. And now I'm getting mixed up. Man, weekends get messy. Today is Sunday. So I'm speaking in Regina this afternoon at 2. If you check out the Saskatchewan Prosperity Project, you can get on with this if you're watching this video in time. Tomorrow is in Swift Current on Monday. Last night it was with Tamara Leach, Mitch Sylvester, Kathy Flett, and Jason Gordon. And I don't know if I mentioned Tamara Leach
And
yet.
pause it for a
And Tamara
moment.
can't make it.
This wasn't the clip I thought, but I want to keep playing it anyway, just to kind of see what he has, because he had another clip where he wrote a book on how to take action for independence. We're going to profile that on tonight's show. That being said, he mentioned Kathy Flett, and she is the one that really convinced me that it's better to have a decentralized grassroots organization. There's a lot of benefits to it, and she was actually going through the history, I think, before we interviewed her, and she was saying the Alberta independence movement has come up a couple of times, and we have had leaders in the past, and that has been the mechanism that they attacked to kind of undermine the movement. So I'm perfectly happy now with having a decentralized movement because of what Kathy Flett said.
And also great to hear that Kathy Flett, Corey Morgan, Max from Freedom Calendar, and a bunch of other people went to Saskatchewan to go to this tour and to talk to the Saskatchewan Prosperity Project as well, because, again, we do have to continue to elevate the conversation beyond and past just Alberta in Quebec and start that independence conversation there in Saskatchewan, even in British Columbia, for the ones that are not insane.
They're going to need to get control of their political systems. They definitely need to get rid of Scott Moe at this point. He's just too buddy-buddy with Carney, and he's not doing the people any favors at this point. They have some legislation standing in their way, and that's why they're going to need a politician to kind of make some corrections.
To the other ones, I'm afraid, because of, house arrest conditions and things. She can get around and get out on stuff, but she can't make it to the others. But the Saskatchewan, happy to report, the Saskatchewan Prosperity Project is just rolling right along. They're organizing, they're getting their stuff together. Support for independence in Saskatchewan is at least as strong as Alberta's, maybe even stronger, but they don't quite have that solid foundation of organization yet that Alberta has. Though Alberta needs a lot of work, and that's what I'm going to kind of get into. And yeah, so we can spend some time with Mitch. I mean, we differ on where
Yeah, right there is good.
Okay.
Prosperity Project or Let's Talk Alberta or any other group on the go out there. Political parties, on the other hand, when you look at it, they have to compete with each other. That's the nature of it because they got to run in an election. You can't work on one candidate's campaign in a constituency and then another candidate's campaign in a constituency and then another one. You've got to pick one. You don't have to stick with just one with this. You can support all of them. And having a good campaign-based approach is very important. I'm just really worried seeing kind of this whizzing by us. And I mean, look at the full bore attack from Federalists and legacy media. Here's where I'm hoping.
And you can
Premier
leave it there.
Smith,
And there's a lot of money and organizations flooding into the Federalist side. That's why there's some concern right now that we really need to start moving. And we do. But just let's take a minute, take a breath, relax, and just focus in. And one step at a time is what it's going to take. That's what got us here. We have a lot of people. And if we all kind of start moving forward at once, the federal government's going to have a real difficult time. I have to fix the curtain because the dog.
That's why you saw a halo appear next to me. She, for some reason, has discovered that she really likes to play with the curtains. So, but let's go into your comments. I'm still trying to figure out why Alberta Now for Independence is not showing up, but let's just go into the comments now. Sean says, what good is a pipeline to Vancouver, BC if they ban tanker container ships? Exactly. Sean also says they aren't going to federalize the resources because they don't want individual Canadians to have any share in those resources. Think more Russian oligarchs is Carney's plan.
Well, it's a multiple step plan. And the first step is they want a sovereign wealth fund. They're going to get Canadians to put money in that sovereign wealth fund. He'll collapse that sovereign wealth fund. And then he'll say he'll rebuild it by putting by putting profits from natural resources into that, but he's going to have to federalize it. And that's how you get the vote to federalize natural resources from your average person, because they're going to be invested within that fund itself. That's step one. Once he has the federal, the resources federalized, then he'll start dictating where that money actually goes, and it won't go to the Canadian people like it would if it was dispersed by individual provinces. Man, the dog is really messing around.
Slavica says, our government pledges allegiance to the British Crown. Canada is not independent from the British Crown. No, and we've highlighted in a tough...
If you see the curtains right there, that's the dog behind them.
And we've highlighted the fact that, yes, King Charles actually has quite a bit more power than I think a lot of people realize or have even remember about.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've covered that multiple times on the show, but we do need to break free of the crown. It's not just a ceremonial position anymore.
Luke Couture says CBC's, I can't mention that word but a special man thing, will say, did a horrible job interviewing Premier Smith and kept pushing her to admit that she was actually a separatist. But which she's not, which she's left quite clear.
And again, this is why I really hope somebody from our side gets to interview Danielle Smith. Hopefully it's the Fringe, and hopefully he asks very poignant questions, and he keeps asking those questions until he gets actual answers. And I think she's fairly good at actually answering a question, especially if it's asked twice. We don't need to get angry. We don't need to have her take our side. We just need to ask the questions. The main question that I kind of want to know is, why wasn't it a binding question on October 19th? And if her answer is because of a court challenge, what's going to be the difference in February or March? Is there going to be a difference, or will it be blocked if you ask a binding question then? And then the third question needs to be, when is the binding referendum going to take place, and an exact timeline? And if she gives a somewhat exact timeline, ask it again until you go step by step by step on exactly what needs to happen. Because that's what a lot of people are concerned about right now.
Wild Rose says, if they block us, let's be honest, it'll lead to wider rebellion and possible revolution. And I think they think people are not capable of that in Canada, but...
lots of things can happen, but let's just focus on October 19th right now.
Slavica says, our constitution gives our MPs all power, which is tyranny. Our constitution gives us no democracy, no rule of law, no chance in court. Canada needs independence, not just in Alberta. Talk to constitutional lawyers. Yes.
Yeah.
Hold on. Wild Rose says, when it becomes unambiguous, when it becomes ambiguous whether or not we're blocked. Sanjali asks, how is it living in Mexico? I would love to get out of China.
Well, it's easy for me because I have my wife here, Nat, and she's originally from Mexico. So she has a lot of roots and other things, and she's able to translate for me anytime that I kind of need. So she's made it easy for me, but I don't know if I would have necessarily enjoyed it if I didn't have Nat here.
And I'm from here. So, I mean, for me, it was just kind of like coming home. I lived in Canada for 13 years.
Yeah, a lot of people that do immigrate to Mexico like the more, I would say, expat areas and things like that. But those areas are very, very much more expensive. It can be double or triple the price. So, but there's a lot of English speakers in those areas.
Yes. Sean says, well, there's going to be separation. USA separated and there was no vote colony-wide. Some loyalists went north, built along with a few French there, and 80 years later, Canada was born. So that's where it comes from as well. So maybe there's still that little inkling of, no, we want to be under the king rule. That's why you have to stay Alberta.
Yeah.
And Sean says, the coldest places on earth are in the center of Canada. You need inexpensive and plentiful energy to survive. When people start dying from the decline, you won't need a vote.
Absolutely. And this is why he's not just playing with economics here. He's playing with people's lives when he plays with natural resources and things like this. It would not only make the world a stronger place, make Canada stronger, but it would make its citizens strong. And I think that's the crucial point. It would make its citizens stronger. And that's not what Mark Carney wants. He wants them weak so he can consolidate power.
And hold on. Over on RUMBLE says, KP4U asks, any word on the debate? Lol, I'm late.
Yeah, the debate, that's going to be the main thing we kind of cover tonight, but it's not going to be live streamed. It's supposed to be recorded and released at a later date. Whether that later date is later tonight or a month from now, nobody really knows. Keith Wilson kind of indicated that they were going to record it, and it would possibly be distributed later through YouTube.
And Independent Alberta says retribution, revenge, punishment. No, we need someone that is at least not worried about pleasing the federal government as a priority.
Absolutely. And we also have to have a long-term strategy to take over the UCP. And I think Mitch is working on that. And that's why I talked about the date of October 18th, 2027. That's when there's 87 seats available for re-election. Some of those seats we don't need because some MLAs already support independence, whether it's openly or behind the scenes. But some of them, we're going to have to get new MLAs in there.
And Independent Alberta says skprosperityproject.ca. So go there and says Saskatchewan is based.
Absolutely. And we support not only Saskatchewan, but also Quebec independence on this channel. So hopefully Quebec really starts to speak up, because what's happening in Alberta could end up having a big impact on them as well.
Okay, now I'll continue reading comments in a bit, but let's go into Alberta personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
The bathroom. And I'll let you start, because I think the dog needs to use the bathroom.
Yeah. As we were coming in, he said she needs to use the bathroom. I think it's the dog. Yes. Because she keeps jumping on me. Starting with Chris Scott from Whistle Stop Cafe saying, quote, "A delay in the referendum might be a blessing in disguise." I think this is the clip that the guy was talking about. "It's an opportunity to consult with First Nations people, many of whom support a sovereign Alberta. Let's engage and educate to build a stronger movement for independence." And I absolutely love what Chris Scott has been doing with his Let's Talk Alberta tours, with his encouragement of just people talking to people, even people debating with people and having those important conversations. Not needing really a facilitator or somebody to be there to start having those conversations, and how he encourages that face-to-face contact rather than just doing everything online. Ironic of me to say, I know, but I'm a little bit far away at the moment. Eventually, we will be going up there to talk to everybody in person too.
As a matter of fact, the more I think about it, and the more I contemplate Ben's book, by the way, the more I think about this, I'm actually wondering if this isn't a blessing in disguise. Why is it a blessing? Okay, maybe we don't get our constitutionally toothed question in October. But what do we get? We get something we've never had before. We get an opportunity for the will of Albertans to manifest in an answer to a referendum question that may not be perfect, but it will have some sort of teeth.
But also, if it's not a blessing in disguise, even if it doesn't seem like it's a blessing in disguise, let's take it as a blessing in disguise. Let's use the time. Let's use all the different ideas and mechanisms that are floating out there, instead of fighting with each other and saying, no, this idea is better. No, let's do this. Let's let everybody, all the groups, do whatever they think is best to reach that one goal, which is Alberta independence, and which is to get more votes on October 19th for that initial first step referendum question that Danielle put on there.
Well, some of our advantages have been taken off the board now, but new ones are placed on there, and we need to make sure we utilize those and change our messaging a little bit here.
Those consultations that are necessary, and I really believe, and I'm talking about First Nations consultations, I really believe we need to stop looking at this as an obstacle, and instead we need to look at it as an opportunity, especially considering that according to recent polls, 46% of First Nations people want a sovereign Alberta. That is a huge opportunity for us to talk with people, engage with them, bring them to this parade, get them involved.
Okay, and we can leave it there. And thanks for Chris Scott for actually going all around Alberta and Saskatchewan as well, and really stumping for independence. We're going to need more people like that, especially with Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre saying they're going to be stumping and going against Alberta independence on the ground all summer long, which is absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we'll go a little bit into your comments and then into Alberta's Canada.
Well, I let the dog out on the patio. We have a little pee pad so she can pee, and she's
injured.
Went like a starfish, and she did not want to leave the patio.
Like pee. Sean says Alberta and Saskatchewan were built by immigrants 100 years ago to farm and mine the resources to feed and power Canada, but Canada has no interest in abundance or growth anymore. Independence is a must. And Sean says, every lawyer in a law society makes an oath to the crown. Even as an American, when I joined the Law Society of England, Wales, I made an oath in a limited form to the crown.
Yeah.
Also, every citizen.
Yeah.
That becomes a citizen. I think it's kind of implied when you're born there, which is still insane. Slavica says, talk about a constitution which affects all Canadians. Our constitution makes slaves of all Canadians.
Yeah, and the problem with the Constitution is it's not a binding constitution. They can take away our constitutional rights at any point with the notwithstanding clause, and that's one of the big problems here.
Amo69M, hello, says Danielle must have been the head of her masterclass in political doublespeak, a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, a referendum within a referendum. LOL. Yeah. And she continues to do that quite well, actually. Troglodyte says Quebec got 2 referendums and a referenda and special privileges. Yeah. And again, if we can frame it in terms of what Quebec got, maybe we can get more people to actually vote during this first time and then get the question, the real independence on there.
Absolutely.
Lucatur says, how can she override and rule out the petition? Question mark.
That's why we need clarity.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Well, that's why we need clarity, and we need somebody from our side to interview him. Derek from the Unacceptable Fringe said he's arranged an interview with her. I hope that's the case, and I hope she actually shows up, because we need to have access to her. So we need to continue to have some relationship with her so we can ask these questions, because we need... even if it's not clarity, we need to know what her side or what she wants to say so we can dig into the actual legal facts of what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. Alberta Now for Independence says, when I was collecting signatures in Mazatlan, here in Mexico, there was hard pushback from Eastern Canadians, but I had so much support from my local friends. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. And thank you for collecting signatures all the way down here. Hope you enjoyed Mazatlan and you didn't get any of the, I think it was hurricanes that we had earlier this year. So
yeah.
Hopefully you're safe.
Well, and maybe I'll take this minute to kind of talk about, Derek has a little content creators event coming up on Wednesday. A lot of content creators are going to be there. They're going to try to make a game plan going forward. So I'm in support of that. Hopefully that goes well. There's only so many content creators that can fit on a live stream, and at once they can't have so many voices. So we're not actually going to be there, but we will be watching, and hopefully everything does go good with that. So just because you don't see some content creators there doesn't mean we don't support what's going on, although I don't know what's going to actually be said.
Mm-hmm. And Alberta Nan, I can see your comments for some reason on my phone where I'm logged in with my personal account, but for some reason on the stream and on our YouTube side, they're not showing up. I'm going to try to figure out why after the stream, but I will continue reading them like this for now. Amo69M says, and with saying that, and Amo69M was talking about the lawyers having to swear before the, promise, whatever it's called, before the Crown, continues, and with saying that, any lawyer working on the side of Alberta independence should publicly reassure that they are no longer bound by oath to the Crown. I'm looking toward both Rath and Wilson. And that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, but that might...
I mean, they have to continue to be so to be able to actually be lawyers, I'm guessing, within Canada, but...
Yeah, what I'm going to say is that might not be a good idea, because there could be repercussions to their legal career and things like that. And we need them to represent us in court, possibly. And we don't want there to be massive repercussions to them on their career side, especially right now.
No, but I mean, if there weren't any legal repercussions, Amo69M says, I don't doubt both Rath and Wilson. I don't doubt Rath and Wilson, but it would be good optics. It would be good optics, but again...
It would be good optics, but there could be severe consequences, and they could lose their legal licenses or something like that.
Any excuse they can use to strip them of their legal license or their ability to practice law, I'm sure they will try to take.
Well, and when they go on the mainstream media and things like that, being identified as a lawyer for Alberta independence, it's good optics for us on a national scale. So we want to make sure he continues to have that title as well.
Yeah. Sean B. Hello says, Smith is stalling. She needs to go. She has become an impediment to independence.
Yeah, but she has to be game planning behind the scenes to take MLAs with her if we do oust her. So maybe we need a more long-term strategy to replace MLAs first before we oust Danielle Smith. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing it based upon the first clip we showed with Alberta Proud Dad talking about MLAs would go, and that would lead way to the rise of the NDP. So maybe the order we need it in is to replace MLAs first and then Danielle Smith second. So it takes a lot of her moves off of the chessboard. That being said, that would be a much longer timeline, and she might just go take Pierre Poilievre's seat by then anyway.
And just to continue with the intrigue of what's happening with Alberta Nan's comments, Sean says, Nan logged into a separate account on a computer. I can see you on my phone, but not on my computer. Same here.
Interesting.
So, again, yeah. And he says maybe you might have to log out and log back in.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do tech support live. But yes, let's go into Alberta's Canada.
Yeah.
I'm angry. had enough of these people.
And this will be the last section, and then we'll go to RUMBLE, just because we went a little longer with the comments today.
No, but we started at 12:15.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been an hour 15.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Okay. Starting with from Braden says, quote, I've not seen anybody talking about what's going on in Canada right now. This man was pulled over and told by police that he had to come with them because a psychiatrist labeled him certifiable. No paperwork, no rule of law, just a doctor saying that if he didn't come with him right then and there, he would be arrested.
This was the most concerning clip of the day, and this is the direction and the police state Canada is starting to create. Absolutely concerning. I was going to put it in breaking news, but I had so much in the breaking news section. I'm glad so many people stuck with us. Pay attention to this clip here.
Yeah. Okay. And this is Dr. Emery. He's a resident psychiatrist, senior resident. He's on a rotation with the CAR 87. We're part of a program that includes Vancouver Coastal Health and the Vancouver Police.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we go to people when there's different reasons that come up. Every case is a little different, and we go to people to see them where they are, especially if there's been issues with trying to find them and talk to them. So in your case, I think you were certified under the Mental Health Act just, I don't know how long ago, but like maybe 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Were you aware of that? Dr. Taylor saw you in a cafe. She didn't certify you. I think you filmed part of it. And then she spoke with your family, got some more information. And, you know, you're going to have to turn that off.
Just one sec. What the officer just told me is that, you know, you and I can set up a meeting and we can chat then. So why don't we do that, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not turning the camera off. I have a legal right to keep the camera on. If you don't want to make the appointment now, we can do it at another time. But, you know, that's what the officer just asked that we do. So why don't we do that?
So I'm going to certify you under the Mental Health Act. We're going to bring you to hospital, do testing on you. And, you're going to talk to a psychiatrist in a controlled environment because we don't believe that you're going to attend an appointment.
I won't attend. I've never been given a chance to attend an appointment.
So he's certified.
I've never been given a chance to attend an appointment. Okay. What is going on?
And you hear the police officers yelling, he's certified, meaning I'm going to take action now. This is absolutely ridiculous.
It's the stop. It looks like a movie. It looks like the start, like a plot point in a movie. It looks dystopic.
But you also have to remember what Coastal Health and Vancouver Health are trying to do. If you're not up to date on jibby jabs, that what they want to bring in the future is they want to be able to actually bring you in like this and say that you are mentally unstable. We covered that story a couple months ago.
Yes.
Some of the adjacent laws that this could have implications on will turn Canada into an absolute police state. This is why Alberta needs its independence before this gets adopted across all of Canada. This guy was calm, cool, collective. He didn't lose his cool even when they said they wanted to bring him in.
I was never given a psych eval or nothing. He just looked at me and said, "You're certified."
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know why, but it's up to the doctor. So if you.
But no, he didn't even give me an eval. He just looked at me and said, "I'm certified." Man.
I get that.
Please consider what you're doing, and please think about the fact that I'm more than happy to come in for an appointment. I'm happy to go through and do everything properly. Okay. I've been completely compliant with everything.
Yeah, you've been really good with me, Nicholas. But listen, that's his call, and unfortunately, we can't.
But he hasn't talked to me.
Checked out by a doctor.
You're interacting with me at a very regular.
And absolutely disturbing that it's doctors that are going to be arresting people now or bringing them in for psych evals that will hold them indefinitely. And if they don't cooperate with that, then they're taken to jail. I would almost rather be taken to the jail at that point because at least there's a definite time and I can postpone possibly.
And again, we don't know the whole backstory. I mean, maybe there's some truth to what the police are saying, but the fact that they can stop you randomly on your car and say that someone saw you in a coffee shop and certified you as needing mental health something and that they now have to bring you into a hospital.
Not mental health something. He met with a psychiatrist at a cafe, which he videotaped. So it's going to be very interesting if that videotape conversation gets released as well. I hope he releases that.
Yeah. And apparently there might be more to the story, so I'll look into it.
Yeah, but it's just very concerning that they're bringing doctors with them and they're saying, you're certified, you're arrested. Craziness.
Because again, that can be manipulated in any number of ways. Already clearly probably is, but it could be even revenge or a crazy psychiatrist ex suddenly says, oh, my ex-husband is insane, so now you have to bring him in and you have to put him in jail or you have to put him in a padded room somewhere.
Or somebody's on, and SSRIs are highly adopted, especially in British Columbia. A doctor could be there. They'll know his medical history because they have access to it. And they'll say, well, he's certified because he's on SSRIs and he's acting erratic. And you're acting erratic because you're pulled over by a cop and you have a doctor and a cop saying they're going to arrest you. you. So of course you're going to act a little erratic.
Exactly.
It's like an excuse. It will be abuse of power. I don't like to see this whatsoever.
It's literally, it's insane. This is why I continue to say Vancouver and Victoria are insane asylums. And they're clearly trying to make it into that, but for the wrong people. JGen Xer says, quote, Premier Danielle Smith just dropped truth on the Alberta separation fight. She's making it crystal clear she and her entire UCP caucus support Alberta remaining in Canada. But she's not backing down from democracy. The court ruling that threw out the separatist petition, she calls it incorrect in law and undemocratic.
Yeah, and I made a post on X today and I said, Danielle Smith, tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies here. I think you're lying to both sides. You're trying to walk this tightrope, and you're becoming unwound just a little bit here. Not in the clip, but people just aren't buying it anymore. Both the Federalists are saying you're a separatist, and the independent side is saying that you're a Federalist, which you obviously are at this point.
People who are to blame are the 14 cowards who signed a letter to the Prime Minister trying to derail our MOU. They should man up and say who they are and say why they don't want this deal to go ahead and why they don't want us to work together to try to solve the legitimate issues that their party created. I think it's people like Abby Lewis who continues to...
And an MOU that was signed by the Liberals, that's what's... Come on now, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Campaign to keep our fossil fuels in the ground. I think it's leadership in British Columbia who continues to try to bury...
The people in Independence don't want that MOU. We don't like the deal. It's federalizing natural resources and it's undermining Albertan workers. We don't like your MOU. We don't like the taxes you're going to pay on not just new oil that's coming out of the ground, but old oil that's already coming out. We're going to start paying carbon taxes on oil. We, number one, shouldn't have to before there's even a shovel in the ground.
Years in the way of us getting our product to market. That is the reason we are having this crisis right now. And I would say, to quote the Prime Minister, people do no longer want to hear what politicians are against. They want to hear what they are for. So I would ask those who have created the environment that we...
She's literally quoting Mark Carney and saying she's quoting Mark Carney while she's doing it, and she's doing it passionately, like he's having good ideas here. Absolutely ridiculous.
Find ourselves in to work constructively, as the Prime Minister and I are, to try to address these legitimate issues, solve them, get Canada working again, get Canada growing again, get jobs created again, get revenues flowing into coffers again, and stop being obstructionists. That's what's created the situation we find ourselves in today.
No. And I swear they're setting up a narrative where her and Mark Carney are working together for the good of Canada, but there's pushback from the Liberal caucus. And then all of a sudden, just before a vote, they push it through and they manage to get a great economic awakening from Canada, which just isn't going to happen. They're federalizing natural resources in front of our eyes, and they're trying to pitch it as it's a good thing. It is not.
Then lastly, you had something about Tim Hortons?
Yeah.
The food professor says, quote,
in one moment before we read this, Dunkin' Donuts is trying to move into the Canadian market. Tim Hortons is scared. I don't necessarily agree with the food professor here. What I think is the issue is the hiring of mass immigrants and things like this. We need to start hiring Canadians.
Well, and the decline in quality, the fact that they sold off to a half American, half Brazilian holding group, et cetera, et cetera.
Canadians will turn to Dunkin' Donuts not because of the quality or the menu design. They're going to turn because of the mass hiring of mass immigration.
On est bon, on est beau, on a 4000 restaurants, tout va bien.
Et
là, cette semaine, on annonce...
Okay, why don't you...
Yeah, let me read it. Tim Hortons, the food professor says, quote, Tim Hortons seems nervous. Why issue 2 press releases in 1 week just to announce new restaurant openings while avoiding the real issues consumers keep talking about, quality and menu design? Dunkin' Donuts' comeback is clearly getting their attention. And I'm sure it would. And again, we never showed those videos comparing Tim Hortons here versus in Canada. But there's Tim Hortons now here in Mexico, and the difference is night and day between what you get when you go to a Tim Hortons in Vancouver, at least, but apparently all of Canada, versus elsewhere around the world, because they focused their attention elsewhere around the world and actually left a lot of the Tim Hortonses behind within Canada and just let the owners of the franchises kind of run them like they want, however they want.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into some comments, and then we're going to go to RUMBLA. That's usually where we finish the show.
Yes. Okay, so all the ones from Sean are trying to tech support Alberta now for independence. Okay, I was going to try to see if I could read some of them, but no. I know. Hold on. Slavica says, we need to get 2 people a day to realize what independence means, and we need to encourage 2 people to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, everybody just has conversations. We can plant seeds. We have a lot of time now. And this October 19th referendum, it's the first of 2 referendums, is massively on our side because it's a non-binding referendum, and 60 to 80% of people in Alberta want a better deal and think they're getting a raw deal from Ottawa. So they're going to vote for independence, especially if they know there is no independence until after the second referendum.
Troglodyte says, soon they will be awarding you MAID. We have to get out of this country now. Yeah. If that clip did not concern you and scare you, then
that was the most concerning clip I've seen in quite a while.
Yeah. Slavica says, let's concentrate on sharing solutions instead of commenting so much on criticisms.
Yeah, but I think you need to focus on the failures of Canada as well. And sometimes that comes off as criticisms to show the direction of Canada, because a lot of people in Alberta that are in support of Canada, they're going to say Canada's going great. We kind of have to unmask Canada and show the failures of it. That's why I say a lot of national conservative content creators that might not be in support of Alberta independence, but are showing the federal failures of the federal government, are actually doing independence a favor. It's a 2-part strategy here. We have to paint a good vision of the future, but we also have to show the direction Canada is going and why it is the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. And Troglodyte says, Minority Report with a communist bent.
Yeah.
Troglodyte also says, meanwhile, how many mentally ill zombies are actually on the streets of Vancouver? Oh, plenty, and plenty more since we even left. And that was one of the reasons why, at least personally, I left. Canadian Spider-Man says, never ever talk to psychiatrists. They are truly crazy. They're the truly crazy ones. Don't put yourself in that position. And especially with the ideological bent and the capture of the whole profession, almost, I would say, that has happened particularly in Canada and the US, but even in places like here in Mexico.
Well, you're seeing more of a long-term strategy potentially emerge here. They've completely captured that entire industry from the certification to the schooling and everything else. So they become very ideological. And now you're giving them a lot of power by combining them with the police force and saying they have the ability to certify somebody. And then the police, like, this is on site. That guy did not look certifiable to me.
No.
And then the police can act on that immediately.
Real Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 Rumble rant, saying the Referendum Act was modified by Danny in December, so the questions that would affect the constitutional or Section 35 Indigenous rights are now not binding for Alberta government.
Yeah, and we went over Bruce Party, that article, or that Reddit article, or Substack article that you sent in the very beginning of the show. We went through most of it, and it was very enlightening. And I think we need some questions answered from Danielle Smith. Hopefully, Derek Smith from The Fringe is going to be able to interview her and ask those questions.
And Luke Couture says, we had a Tim Hortons in Afghanistan, and I'm sure it looked nicer than the ones that you see in Canada nowadays, even there. Okay, but now let's move over to RUMBLE. And there's a 30-second wait screen, and then we'll see you over there. Oh, yeah. And then we'll see you over there. What else? Please don't forget to subscribe. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers, so thank you so much to everybody. And we will see you, if not, back at 5 p.m. here.
We'll see you over on RUMBLE.
Yes.
Let's get ready to